Welcome to Ultimate Sleep Doctor. Tonight, we'll journey into the quiet wonder of our beginnings. Consider the immense timescale of existence, the slow, deliberate unfolding of life upon this planet. Human evolution, a story etched in stone and whispered in DNA. It's a tale of adaptation, resilience, and the persistent striving toward light. Think about the patient work of nature, shaping each generation, each creature, into what it is today. There's a profound beauty in this ancient dance, a connection to something much larger than ourselves. If you find these explorations soothing, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Ultimate Sleep Doctor. Together, we can soothe more wandering minds, one peaceful night at a time. Just breathe. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across the vast sky. Let's begin. The Earth was very different millions of years ago. The continents weren't arranged as they are today, and the climate was warmer, with vast, lush forests covering much of Africa, particularly the region we now call Ethiopia. This was a time when life was experimenting, trying out new ways to survive and thrive. Among the earliest creatures to grapple with these changes was a small, fascinating hominin, Ardipithecus ramidus. Fossil evidence of Ardipithecus is incredibly rare, a precious few bones scattered across the afar region of Ethiopia. But these fragments have revealed a surprising picture of our very distant ancestors. Ardipithecus lived approximately 4.4 million years ago, placing it right at the very beginning of the transition from ape-like ancestors to the upright walking humans we are today. It's important to remember that hominin simply means a member of the group that includes humans and our closest extinct relatives. Ardipithecus wasn't a fully developed human, nor was it a primitive ape. Instead, it represents a crucial and somewhat perplexing stage in the development of bipedalism, the ability to walk upright on two legs. The most famous Ardipithecus fossil, nicknamed Ardi, was discovered in 1994. Ardi was a remarkably complete skeleton, giving scientists an unprecedented glimpse into the anatomy of this early hominin. She was a small creature, standing only about 3 feet tall, and possessed a mix of features that don't quite fit neatly into either the ape or human lineage. Her arms were surprisingly long, adapted for climbing trees, suggesting that Ardipithecus spent a significant amount of time in the branches of these ancient forests. However, her leg bones were clearly designed for walking, exhibiting adaptations that would later become hallmarks of bipedal locomotion. The shape of Ardi's feet was particularly intriguing. They had an arch, similar to our own feet, which is essential for efficient weight-bearing during upright walking. Her toes were also relatively long and flexible, suggesting she could grasp branches with some dexterity. Crucially, the position of her foot was more similar to modern humans than to that of chimpanzees or gorillas, the closest living relatives of humans. This foot structure, combined with the shape of her leg bones, indicates that Ardipithecus was already experimenting with a form of bipedalism, though it wasn't necessarily a fully habitual form of walking. It's tempting to think of bipedalism as a sudden, dramatic invention. However, the evolution of upright walking was likely a gradual process, shaped by a combination of environmental pressures and functional advantages. One prominent theory suggests that walking on 2 legs in the forest offered a clear benefit. It allowed Ardipithecus to see over tall grasses and shrubs, providing an advantage in spotting predators or locating food sources. Another theory proposes that carrying objects, such as food or tools, would have been much easier while walking upright. It's also important to consider that the environments Ardipithecus inhabited were changing. The forests were becoming fragmented, and grasslands were starting to expand. This environmental shift likely placed greater selective pressure on animals that could efficiently navigate these changing landscapes. Bipedalism would have been a valuable adaptation in this environment, offering an advantage in traversing open areas and reducing the energy expenditure associated with walking on level ground. The way Artie's leg bones are shaped also suggests a unique gait. Her legs were not as powerfully built as those of later hominins. This indicates a less powerful stride, a slower, more deliberate walking style. It's possible that Ardipithecus didn't walk as far or as quickly as later hominins. Instead, her bipedal walking may have been used for shorter distances, perhaps to move between trees or to reach specific foraging sites. Scientists have debated the exact nature of Ardipithecus's gait for years. Some analyses suggest that Artie walked with a slight curvature in her spine, similar to a modern human, while others believe she maintained a more upright posture. Regardless of the precise details, the fact remains that Ardipithecus was already demonstrating the fundamental adaptations associated with bipedalism. It's vital to remember that Ardipithecus wasn't a direct ancestor of modern humans. Instead, it represents a branching point in the hominin evolutionary tree. It shows us that the path to becoming a human was not a straight line, but a complex and varied journey with many different experiments. Other hominin species, such as Australopithecus and Homo, emerged later, each building upon the adaptations first established by Ardipithecus. The discovery of Ardipithecus ramidus has fundamentally changed our understanding of early hominin evolution. It challenges the long-held belief that the first hominins were simply ape-like creatures that gradually evolved into upright walkers. Instead, Ardipithecus demonstrates that bipedalism may have evolved in a more diverse range of environments and in a more complex manner than previously thought. Artie's story is a testament to the power of chance and adaptation. It's a reminder that evolution isn't about a predetermined goal, but about organisms responding to their environment in the most effective ways they can. As we continue to uncover new fossil evidence, our understanding of Ardipithecus ramidus and the very origins of humanity will undoubtedly continue to evolve. It's a story still being written, one tiny fossil at a time. The landscape of East Africa, around 3.9 to 2.9 million years ago, was a patchwork of environments. There were stretches of open woodland, interspersed with grasslands and riverine woodlands, a far cry from the vast savannas we often picture when we think of early hominins. And within this complex mosaic of habitats lived Australopithecus afarensis, a species that continues to puzzle and fascinate paleontologists and scientists today. Australopithecus, meaning southern ape, represents a pivotal moment in human evolution, a stage where the seeds of our own lineage were being sown with remarkable, and sometimes seemingly contradictory, characteristics. The discovery of Lucy, a remarkably complete skeleton found in the Awash Valley of Ethiopia in 1974, dramatically reshaped our understanding of this species. Lucy wasn't just a fossil. She was a key piece in a complicated puzzle, offering a breathtaking glimpse into the way Australopithecus afarensis lived and moved. Her bones revealed a body plan that was a striking blend of primitive and derived features, showcasing what scientists now call mosaic evolution. Let's consider her leg bones. They were clearly adapted for efficient bipedal walking, much like those of modern humans. The femur, the thigh bone, was angled inwards, and the tibia and fibula, the lower leg bones, were robust, indicating strong support for weight bearing. However, the foot itself was still relatively flexible and possessed a grasping big toe, a feature seen in primates, including modern apes. This suggests that while walking upright was becoming more common, Australopithecus afarensis probably still spent considerable time climbing trees, or at least using their feet for gripping branches. Looking at her hand, the picture of complexity continued. The wrist and fingers were relatively long and slender, equipped with opposable thumbs again, a characteristic shared with our ancestors. This indicated a capacity for manipulation, a potential for using tools, although it's unlikely they were creating sophisticated ones at this time. The hand was certainly capable of precise movements, suggesting they might have been able to pick up small objects, perhaps fruits or seeds. The cranium of Australopithecus afarensis was another area of significant interest. It was smaller than a human brain, averaging around 450 cubic centimeters, but it had a projecting face with a prominent brow ridge, a bony arch above the eyes, and a relatively large nasal cavity. The large nasal cavity likely played a role in regulating body temperature, a useful adaptation in the fluctuating environments of East Africa. The teeth were also distinctive. They were small, sharp, and relatively flat, suggesting a diet that included fruits, leaves, and perhaps some roots. The jaw was powerful, indicating strong chewing muscles, and the foramen magnum, the hole at the base of the skull where the spinal cord connects, was positioned forward, as it is in humans, which suggests that the head was balanced directly over the shoulders, facilitating an upright posture. The combination of these features paints a picture of an animal that was transitioning from a primarily arboreal, tree-dwelling existence to a more terrestrial lifestyle, but wasn't yet fully adapted to a life solely on the ground. Importantly, the fossil record for Australopithecus afarensis shows a degree of variation within the population. Some individuals were taller than others, some had larger teeth, and some had more robust bones. This variation likely reflected adaptations to different environments and food sources. It's probable that groups of Australopithecus afarensis occupied different ecological niches, exploiting the resources available in their local surroundings. The discovery of Ardi, a remarkably complete skeleton of a different Australopithecus species from the same geological period, further complicated the picture. While Ardi possessed many characteristics similar to A. afarensis, it also had features, such as a more flexible foot and a different skull structure, that suggest Australopithecus evolution was a branching process, with multiple species experimenting with different adaptations. Essentially, Australopithecus afarensis represents a crucial transitional stage. It wasn't a direct ancestor of Homo sapiens, but it was a species that was pushing the boundaries of what was possible, combining ancestral traits with new developments, preparing the way for the emergence of our own genus. It's a powerful reminder that evolution isn't always a linear progression. It's more like a branching bush, with countless experiments occurring simultaneously, driven by environmental pressures and the relentless drive to survive and thrive. The fossil record of Australopithecus afarensis and other related species provides us with invaluable insights into the complex processes that shaped the early human lineage. It's a story of adaptation, experimentation, and ultimately, the remarkable journey that led to the emergence of humankind, a journey that began with a remarkable species like Lucy, standing upright in the ancient landscapes of East Africa. The landscape of southern Africa, roughly 2.5 million years ago, was a very different place than it is today. Vast, open grasslands stretched for miles, dotted with acacia trees and scrubland. Rivers carved their paths through this terrain, creating crucial water sources and supporting a thriving ecosystem. It was here, in this ancient world, that a particularly hardy and specialized group of hominins began to flourish, Paranthropus robustus, often referred to as the robust Australopithecine lineage. Fossils discovered primarily in the Sterkfontein Caves, Swartkrans Caves, and Kromdrai Caves, all within the cradle of humankind, provide the most compelling evidence for the existence and characteristics of P. robustus. Unlike Australopithecus afarensis, which possessed a more generalized morphology, P. robustus exhibited a suite of adaptations seemingly geared towards a diet of heavily chewed, tough vegetation. The fossil record isn't always neat and tidy, but the skeletal remains tell a remarkable story. The skulls of P. robustus are enormous, the largest of any hominin at the time. Their cranial capacity was significantly larger than that of A. afarensis, approaching that of early Homo species. This increase in brain size, while not dramatically different in absolute terms, is linked to the heavier chewing muscles and the powerful jaw structure. The facial bones were heavily thickened and projecting, creating a truly imposing visage. The zygomatic arches, the bony structures that form the cheekbones, were exceptionally large and flared outwards, contributing to the overall robust appearance. But the most striking features were undoubtedly the jaws and teeth. The mandible, or lower jaw, was massively built, displaying enormous vertical ridges tori that braced the cheek muscles. These muscles were incredibly strong, generated by tendons that stretched across the entire face. The teeth themselves were gigantic, the molars particularly large and thick enameled. They were designed to withstand incredible forces, capable of grinding down extremely fibrous plant material. The enamel, the hardest substance in the animal kingdom, was exceptionally thick, protecting the teeth from wear and tear. The shape of the teeth, massive, blunt, and relatively flat, suggests a diet primarily composed of roots, tubers, and tough leaves. Analysis of the fossilized tooth wear patterns further supports this dietary interpretation. The surfaces of P. robustus teeth show extensive polishing, a result of the sustained, powerful grinding action. This indicates a constant, intensive chewing process, far more demanding than the less intense chewing observed in A. afarensis. Interestingly, the fossil record reveals a notable difference in tooth size and wear between P. robustus and other hominins present in the region at the time, including Australopithecus africanus, providing evidence of niche partitioning, different species occupying slightly different ecological roles. Beyond the skulls and jaws, the postcranial skeleton of P. robustus offers further clues. The limbs were powerfully built, with robust limb bones, particularly the femur and tibia, indicating considerable muscle mass. The hand bones were thick and robust, suggesting a strong grip for manipulating branches or digging for roots. The overall skeletal structure reflects a creature built for strength and endurance, adapted to a physically demanding lifestyle. The discovery of P. robustus raises important questions about the evolutionary pressures that shaped this lineage. It's thought that P. robustus evolved in response to a changing environment, specifically, the increasing seasonality and dryness of the grasslands during the early Pleistocene. As the grasslands became more open, the available resources shifted, favoring individuals with the ability to exploit the tougher vegetation that remained. It's believed that P. robustus represented a dead-end branch in the hominin evolutionary tree. While this robust lineage thrived for a considerable period, ultimately, it was superseded by another group, Homo, which possessed a combination of robust features and more efficient tool-making capabilities. The rise of Homo marked a significant transition in human evolution, laying the foundation for the development of more complex behaviors, and eventually, the emergence of our own species. However, even though P. robustus didn't lead directly to Homo, its existence is crucial for our understanding of human evolution. It demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of our ancestors and the diverse ways in which hominins responded to environmental challenges. The fossils of P. robustus are a powerful reminder that the story of human evolution is not a simple, linear progression, but rather a complex, branching bush, shaped by the interplay of genetics, environment, and behavior. The continued excavation and analysis of P. robustus fossils continue to refine our knowledge of this fascinating lineage and provide valuable insights into the early stages of human evolution. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, bringing us closer to understanding the origins of our own species. The legacy of these strong-jawed hominins lives on in the rocks of South Africa, a silent testament to the enduring power of adaptation and survival. The landscape of East Africa, roughly 2.3 million years ago, was undergoing a quiet but profound shift. The open grasslands that began to appear after the last glacial advance were no longer solely occupied by the larger, slower-moving Australopithecus afarensis. A new species was beginning to take shape, a species that would ultimately lead us, all of us, down a path towards a future filled with ingenuity and complex thought. This was Homo habilis, and the story of its emergence is intimately linked to the very beginnings of tool use and a noticeable increase in brain size. For a long time, scientists considered Homo habilis to be a direct descendant of Australopithecus. However, the fossil record, particularly the variation in Homo habilis fossils themselves, suggested a more nuanced picture. The remains we find aren't all identical. Some are clearly Australopithecus, while others exhibit features that are distinctly Homo. This variation wasn't simply due to individual differences within a single species, but represented the evolutionary transition between these two groups. Importantly, the archaeological evidence began to point towards a species actively modifying its environment. The name Homo habilis, which translates to handy man, was chosen because of the first and most compelling evidence of its behavior, the discovery of stone tools. These weren't the sophisticated, finely crafted tools associated with later Homo species. Instead, they were simple, crudely shaped flakes and choppers, pieces of stone that had been struck with another stone to create sharp edges. These tools, found alongside Homo habilis fossils, provided undeniable proof that this species possessed the cognitive ability to deliberately alter its surroundings. The earliest examples, unearthed from sites like Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, suggest a focus on basic needs: smashing open nuts and seeds, scraping meat from bones, and perhaps processing vegetation. The way these tools were made offers crucial insights. The Homo habilis people didn't seem to have a sophisticated understanding of stone properties or the precise techniques we see in later toolmaking. The tools were created through a relatively simple process of core reduction, striking a stone repeatedly to create flakes. The resulting flakes were then used directly, without further shaping. This suggests a level of understanding, but also a relatively limited scope of practical knowledge. It was a starting point, a demonstration of an ability to plan and execute a simple task. Alongside the tools, a fascinating trend began to appear in the Homo habilis fossil record: a clear increase in brain size relative to body size. While still small compared to modern humans, cranial capacities in Homo habilis individuals averaged around 600–700 cubic centimeters, a significant jump from the average of around 450 cubic centimeters seen in Australopithecus afarensis. This increase in brain size isn't easily explained by simply stating that Homo habilis was smarter. It was, rather, a consequence of several interconnected changes. The enlargement of the brain was likely driven by a need to solve increasingly complex problems. The ability to make and use tools demanded a greater capacity for planning, coordination, and learning. It's hypothesized that the increased brain size also facilitated a better understanding of social interactions within the group. Cooperative tool production and the sharing of knowledge would have placed a premium on social intelligence. Furthermore, changes in diet, potentially including more meat, may have contributed to the enhanced brain size. The metabolic demands of a meat-based diet are far higher than those of a primarily plant-based one, and an increase in brain size requires a significant boost in energy intake. The relationship between tool use and brain size expansion in Homo habilis is a compelling example of a feedback loop. As brain size grew, the ability to make and use tools improved. This, in turn, created a further need for enhanced cognitive abilities, driving further brain development. This positive feedback loop was pivotal in shaping the trajectory of human evolution. The environment that Homo habilis inhabited was undergoing a gradual transformation. As the grasslands expanded, opportunities for scavenging and opportunistic hunting emerged. It's plausible that Homo habilis initially relied on scavenging, taking advantage of the remains of larger animals killed by predators, and perhaps even employing their crude tools to access meat and marrow. Evidence suggests a growing reliance on small animals such as lizards and insects, requiring a refined toolset for effective hunting and gathering. The archaeological record reveals a surprising diversity of tools associated with Homo habilis. Different tool types, flakes, choppers, picks, and even hammerstones were found at the same sites, suggesting that Homo habilis was experimenting with different techniques and adapting its tool kit to the specific challenges it faced. This adaptability, combined with the increasing brain size, marked a critical step in the journey towards becoming Homo erectus, the species that would eventually spread out of Africa and reshape the world. The legacy of Homo habilis lies not just in the simple tools it created, but in the profound shift it represented, a shift from solely relying on instinct to actively shaping the environment with intelligence and ingenuity. It was the dawn of a new way of being, a way that would ultimately lead to the magnificent species that we are today. The Earth was still settling after the great volcanic upheavals of the Pliocene epoch. The landscape was dramatically different than it is today. Vast savannas stretched across much of Africa, punctuated by lakes and river systems that served as vital lifelines for the emerging hominins. A new species was beginning to shape its destiny, Homo erectus. Unlike its immediate predecessors, Homo erectus possessed a suite of characteristics that hinted at a significantly greater adaptability and, crucially, a capacity for long-distance movement. Its stature was noticeably taller, averaging around 5.5 feet, and its cranial capacity, though still smaller than modern humans, was considerably larger than that of Homo habilis, indicating an increase in cognitive ability. The most striking difference, however, lay in the morphology of its limbs. Homo erectus had longer legs relative to its arms, a build optimized for endurance running, a feature that would prove vital for its survival and migration patterns. This species, appearing approximately 1.9 million years ago in the Olduvai Gorge of Tanzania, was the first hominin to confidently venture beyond the confines of East Africa. Fossil discoveries across Asia, particularly in Java and China, demonstrated a rapid and widespread dispersal. These weren't simply isolated individuals. Homo erectus seems to have established multiple populations across geographically diverse environments. The reason for this outward expansion remains a subject of intense scientific debate, but it's generally believed to be driven by a combination of factors. A warming climate in Africa that reduced woodland and expanded grasslands, and the inherent exploratory drive of a species increasingly capable of exploiting new resources. The archaeological record associated with Homo erectus tells a fascinating story of technological innovation. While Homo habilis primarily focused on simple Alduin tools, roughly chopped stones used for butchering animals and processing vegetation, Homo erectus developed the Acheulean tool tradition. This represents a remarkable shift in cognitive and technological capability. Acheulean hand axes were carefully shaped, symmetrical tools crafted from stone, typically flint, that were significantly more complex than Alduin choppers. They weren't simply crude flakes. These hand axes were meticulously prepared and struck with a hammerstone, requiring considerable skill and foresight to create. The creation of these tools demonstrated a new level of planning and understanding of material properties. The hand axes weren't used for everyday tasks like cutting vegetables. Instead, they appear to have been primarily employed for butchering large animals, demanding a concerted effort to subdue and process sizable prey. The Acheulean tradition is named after the Saint École site in France, where some of the earliest and most spectacular examples were discovered. However, tools of this type have been found across Asia, notably at Zhoukoudian in China, which was inhabited by Homo erectus populations, and at sites in Java. The distinctiveness of the Acheulean tool tradition, along with the broader geographical distribution of Homo erectus, suggests a significant cognitive leap. It's hypothesized that the creation of hand axes wasn't solely driven by practical necessity. It could have been a learned behavior passed down through generations, perhaps initially discovered by a few individuals, and subsequently refined and perfected. This highlights a potential development in cultural transmission, a critical step in human evolution. The evidence also suggests that Homo erectus was becoming more adept at exploiting a wider range of resources. While the Alduin tools were primarily focused on scavenging and opportunistic feeding, the creation of hand axes indicates a more deliberate approach to hunting, implying a greater understanding of animal behavior and hunting strategies. Furthermore, the discovery of hearths associated with Homo erectus sites, particularly at Jalkudian, provides strong evidence of controlled fire use. This wasn't simply accidental. These fires were carefully constructed and maintained, providing warmth, protection from predators, and a means of cooking food. Cooking food makes it easier to digest and unlocks more nutrients, representing another significant advance in human dietary habits. The relationship between Homo erectus and fire is particularly compelling. It's believed that Homo erectus learned to control fire, possibly initially through observing animals, and subsequently through trial and error. The use of fire would have fundamentally altered the way Homo erectus lived, allowing them to survive in colder climates, process food more effectively, and potentially to drive animals into traps. The dispersal of Homo erectus also raises intriguing questions about interactions with other hominins. There's no direct fossil evidence of violent conflict, but the presence of Homo erectus in areas inhabited by Australopithecus suggests that competition for resources likely existed. The longer legs of Homo erectus probably provided a significant advantage in open environments, potentially contributing to its success over other hominin species. It's important to note that the fossil record of Homo erectus is incomplete, and our understanding of this species is constantly evolving as new discoveries are made. However, the evidence overwhelmingly points to Homo erectus as a pivotal species in human evolution. It wasn't just a step, it represented a transformative leap, laying the foundation for the development of Homo sapiens, our own species. The combination of increased stature, larger brain size, the Acheulean tool tradition, controlled fire use, and widespread dispersal marked a significant departure from its predecessors and set the stage for the remarkable journey of our lineage. The legacy of Homo erectus continues to shape our story, reminding us of the ingenuity, adaptability, and ultimately, the enduring spirit of exploration that defines our species. Ultimately, the story of Homo erectus is a testament to the power of adaptation, innovation, and the drive to explore the unknown. It's a chapter in our evolutionary narrative that deserves to be remembered and celebrated. The landscape of early human toolmaking wasn't marked by sudden leaps, but rather by a series of carefully calibrated adjustments, a slow, deliberate dance between ingenuity and the raw materials available. Following the footprints of Homo habilis, a new stage of technological development began to unfold: the Alduin industry. This wasn't a single invention, but a slowly evolving set of techniques centered around the creation of simple, yet remarkably effective, stone tools. These tools, named for the Alduin site in Ethiopia where they were first definitively identified, were unlike anything seen before. They represented a move away from simply breaking stones for their utility, towards a conscious effort to shape them into specific forms. The basic Alduin tool was in its simplest form, a core, a roughly oval-shaped piece of stone, usually basalt, dolerite, or quartzite. These materials were chosen for their relative abundance and, crucially, their fracturing properties. The process began with a carefully selected core stone, often possessing a naturally occurring conchoidal fracture, a curved crack that formed when the stone was struck with another stone. This wasn't random smashing. The early Alduin makers were observing the way these fractures occurred and exploiting them to their advantage. The primary tool produced from this core was the choppers. These weren't beautifully shaped implements. Instead, they were flakes, irregular, thumb-sized pieces of stone created by striking the core with another, smaller stone, typically a quartzite or obsidian pebble. The aim wasn't to create a precise edge, but rather to detach a chunk of stone that would, through its inherent shape, act as a cutting or scraping tool. The strike angle and force were critical. A glancing blow was more likely to produce a workable flake than a forceful, shattering hit. Researchers believe early Alduin makers would have practiced these strikes repeatedly, learning to control the force and angle to consistently produce flakes of the desired size and shape. Beyond the choppers, a second key product of the Alduin industry was the scraper. Scrapers were created in a slightly different way. Rather than detaching a complete flake, the maker would strike the core at a more acute angle, creating a thin, crescent-shaped edge. These edges were then carefully worked, sometimes with a pointed stone, to refine the shape and create a smoother, more durable cutting surface. The development of scrapers suggests a growing awareness of the different properties of stone and a more sophisticated understanding of how to manipulate it. The tools themselves weren't used for grand, sweeping tasks. The primary function of the Alduin industry was meat processing. Fossil evidence, specifically, the presence of butchery marks on animal bones reveals that Homo habilis and early members of the Alduin industry were using these tools to break apart animal carcasses, extracting muscle tissue, and perhaps even preparing hides. The tool's inherent shape, combined with careful application of force, allowed them to effectively penetrate and fracture bone. Interestingly, the Alduin industry didn't rely on a single method of tool creation. Variations emerged. Some cores were systematically shaped using a technique known as percussing, where a stone hammer was repeatedly used to pound and flatten the core, creating a smoother surface for flake removal. Other cores were prepared, meaning that they were intentionally modified before the creation of flakes, perhaps to create a more favorable surface for fracturing. The tools themselves were remarkably durable, surviving for hundreds of thousands of years in the harsh environments of East Africa. Their simple construction, combined with the inherent properties of the materials used, made them surprisingly robust. Furthermore, the lack of specialized tools meant that even a single, well-made choppers could be used for a wide range of tasks: cutting meat, processing plants, or even crafting simple wooden implements. It's crucial to understand that the Alduin industry wasn't a product of a single, brilliant inventor. It was the result of incremental learning and adaptation. Each generation of toolmakers built upon the knowledge and techniques of their predecessors. Over time, they refined their methods, experimented with different materials, and developed a deeper understanding of how to extract maximum utility from stone. This slow, iterative process of innovation ultimately laid the foundation for the more complex and specialized tool industries that would follow. The transition from Alduin to later tool industries, such as the Acheulean, didn't represent a complete abandonment of the Alduin. Rather, it was a diversification, with different toolmakers utilizing different techniques and producing a wider range of specialized tools. However, for a considerable period, roughly 2 million years, the Alduin tool industry represented the pinnacle of early human technological achievement, demonstrating a profound and adaptive relationship between our ancestors and the world around them. It was a testament to the power of observation, experimentation, and the enduring human drive to shape the environment to our needs. The story of our human ancestors is like a grand, branching tree, constantly growing and spreading across the globe. We've followed the roots, seen the early shoots of Homo habilis, and watched the powerful trunk of Homo erectus begin its journey. But now, we arrive at a particularly fascinating and crucial point, a fork in the road, if you will, represented by Homo heidelbergensis. This species, living approximately 700,000 to 300,000 years ago, holds a unique position, acting as a vital link between the earlier Homo genera and the subsequent appearance of Homo neanderthalensis. It wasn't a wildly distinct species, aggressively dominating landscapes, but instead, It was remarkably adaptable and possessed characteristics that set the stage for the evolutionary developments to come. Fossils attributed to Homo heidelbergensis have been discovered across a wide geographic range, from Europe to Africa and even parts of Asia. This widespread distribution is a key piece of evidence for its significance. The remains are often robust, displaying a combination of features, some resembling earlier Homo forms, while others hinting at traits that would become more pronounced in Neanderthals. Bone structure suggests a strong, physically capable individual, well-suited for hunting and survival in varied environments. Importantly, the fossil record shows a gradual transition from the more primitive Homo features to those seen in Neanderthals, providing a chronological sequence for understanding the evolutionary changes. One of the most compelling aspects of Homo heidelbergensis is the evidence pointing to sophisticated behaviors. Archaeological sites associated with this species reveal the use of more complex tools than those typically associated with Homo erectus. While the Acheulean industry, established by Homo erectus, persisted in some regions, Homo heidelbergensis utilized a mix of techniques, including the creation of flake tools, smaller, sharper pieces of stone created by striking a stone with another. This flexibility in toolmaking suggests a growing capacity for problem-solving and adaptation. Furthermore, there's increasing evidence, primarily from sites in Africa, indicating that Homo heidelbergensis utilized fire in a more controlled manner than previously thought. The deliberate construction of hearths and the burning of wood suggests not only warmth and cooking, but potentially also the use of fire for defense, driving animals, or perhaps even for processing materials. What truly distinguishes Homo heidelbergensis is the mosaic of traits within its fossil remains. Some individuals possessed cranial features, a larger brain case, a prominent brow ridge, and a sloping forehead that are remarkably similar to those found in Neanderthals. However, others displayed more rounded skull shapes, resembling those of earlier Homo species. This variability is crucial. It suggests that Homo heidelbergensis wasn't a single, fixed species, but rather a population undergoing evolutionary changes. It's believed that this group was evolving towards the Neanderthal lineage, with some individuals carrying genes and physical characteristics that would eventually become defining traits of the Neanderthals. The archaeological record offers tantalizing hints about the social structure of Homo heidelbergensis populations. Some sites display evidence of cooperative hunting, with multiple individuals working together to bring down larger prey. The size of the tools recovered also suggests that these hunts were ambitious, requiring coordinated effort and strategic planning. It's possible that Homo heidelbergensis groups lived in larger family units, providing better protection and support for their offspring. Crucially, Homo heidelbergensis occupies a period of significant environmental change. The last glacial period was in full swing, leading to colder temperatures and a reduction in available resources. This pressure likely played a role in the evolution of the species, driving adaptations that would improve their ability to survive in a harsher climate. The evidence suggests that Homo heidelbergensis developed greater physical strength, increased body size, and possibly even adaptations for conserving heat. These changes weren't dramatically different from those seen in Neanderthals, but they were building upon the foundation laid by this earlier Homo population. Genetic studies, though still ongoing and complex, provide further support for the connection between Homo heidelbergensis and Neanderthals. Analyses of ancient DNA, particularly from fossils found in Europe, reveal a surprising degree of genetic similarity between the two groups. Some scientists believe that Neanderthals evolved directly from a population of Homo heidelbergensis that migrated into Europe during the last glacial period. Others propose a more complex scenario, with multiple migrations and interbreeding between different Homo populations. the legacy of Homo heidelbergensis isn't one of grand, sweeping transformations, but rather of subtle, incremental changes. It was a species that was preparing the ground for the arrival of Homo neanderthalensis, a species that would eventually dominate Europe and parts of Asia. Think of it as a preparatory stage, a vital experiment in adaptation and evolution. Homo heidelbergensis skillfully navigated a challenging period, developing the skills and characteristics that would eventually allow its descendants to thrive, even in the face of dramatic environmental shifts and competition from other hominin species. Ultimately, Homo heidelbergensis serves as a powerful reminder that human evolution isn't a linear progression, but rather a branching tree, with countless variations and pathways. It represents a crucial juncture in our story, a pivotal moment where the seeds of the Neanderthal lineage were sown, setting the stage for one of the most fascinating and impactful chapters in the history of our species. It's a species to be admired not for its dominance, but for its role in shaping the future of humankind. The world was a very different place when our Homo ancestors first encountered fire. For millions of years, the dominant Homo species, Homo erectus, had relied entirely on the natural world for warmth, protection, and a means to process food. They skillfully crafted tools, the Acheulean hand axes, but their lives were fundamentally dictated by the rhythms of the sun, the seasons, and the availability of wild foods. The emergence of fire marked a profound shift, a technological leap that irrevocably altered the trajectory of human evolution. The earliest evidence of this shift is surprisingly fragmented and open to interpretation, a puzzle pieced together from charred remains and geological deposits across Eurasia. The first tantalizing clues come from sites in southwestern France, specifically the Terra Amata site. Excavations here, beginning in the early 21st century, revealed a small, deliberately constructed area containing burnt flint, charcoal, and animal bones. While the burning itself wasn't necessarily evidence of fire use, it could have resulted from natural lightning strikes. The arrangement of the remains suggested a conscious effort. The bones were often found clustered around burned material, and some had cut marks indicating they had been heated. This site isn't necessarily a campfire location, but it strongly implies that Homo were experimenting with and potentially learning to control fire. Further east, in Russia, the Kostanki site offers a slightly different picture. Dating back over 40,000 years, it boasts a remarkable accumulation of burnt bones, suggesting a far more established use of fire. Analysis of the charcoal revealed different types, indicating a diverse range of fuel sources, from wood to animal fat. The sheer volume of burned material suggests that fire wasn't just a fleeting occurrence, but a regularly utilized resource. The climate at Kostanki was harsh, with long, frigid winters, and fire would have provided crucial warmth and protection from predators. The surrounding landscape, with its sparse vegetation, also makes it likely that Homo were actively gathering and transporting wood to sustain the flames. The discovery of hearths, deliberately constructed areas where fire was consistently burned, adds another layer to this story. At sites like Shuidu in China, dating back around 80,000 years, archaeologists found clear evidence of carefully constructed pits filled with burnt stones and charcoal. The size and shape of these hearths, along with the surrounding artifacts, strongly suggest that fire was used for cooking, perhaps even for communal gatherings and social interaction. The act of creating and maintaining a fire demanded a level of coordination and cooperation, furthering the development of social skills within Homo groups. The impact of fire on Homo evolution is multifaceted. Perhaps the most immediate benefit was the ability to cook food. Raw meat is difficult to digest and can contain harmful bacteria. Cooking breaks down proteins, making food easier to process and increasing the nutritional value. This would have been particularly important for Homo, who had begun to rely more heavily on meat in their diet, allowing them to obtain more calories and nutrients from a smaller amount of food. Evidence suggests that Homo were roasting or boiling animal carcasses, and even preparing plant foods like tubers, further increasing their dietary options. Beyond nutrition, fire provided a critical defense against predators. The bright flames and smoke would have deterred many animals, giving Homo a significant advantage in vulnerable environments. It also offered protection from the elements, allowing Homo to survive in colder climates and during periods of extreme weather. The ability to create a warm, dry space within a shelter dramatically improved their chances of survival. Furthermore, fire spurred advancements in tool technology. The need to transport wood for fuel led to the development of improved carrying devices, such as baskets and sledges, while the necessity of creating sharp tools for fire maintenance, flint knives, for instance, fueled further innovation in flint knapping. The demand for fire also incentivized the development of sophisticated strategies for finding and collecting fuel sources. The spread of fire use is intrinsically linked to the evolutionary success of Homo. As Homo populations migrated out of Africa, they carried with them the knowledge and technology of fire. This advantage allowed them to adapt to a wider range of environments and compete more effectively with other hominins, like Neanderthals, who were initially less reliant on fire. The capacity to create and maintain fire became a key factor in Homo's ability to dominate the planet. It's difficult to definitively state when Homo mastered the consistent control of fire, but the accumulation of evidence points towards a gradual process of learning and refinement, beginning perhaps 70,000 years ago. The connection between fire and Homo evolution is a testament to the power of technology to reshape the course of life itself. It wasn't merely a tool, it was a catalyst, driving innovation, expanding dietary possibilities, enhancing survival rates, and ultimately, allowing Homo to flourish and spread across the globe. The legacy of fire, born from a moment of accidental discovery or perhaps deliberate experimentation, continues to shape our world and our story as a species. The story of human evolution, as we've been piecing it together, has always seemed to circle around familiar names: Homo heidelbergensis, the tools of the Alduin, even the beginnings of fire. But lurking in the shadows, revealed only recently through incredible scientific detective work, is a lineage that complicates everything. It's a story of a people we barely know, a group called the Denisovans, whose existence was initially hinted at by tiny fragments of bone and ancient DNA. The discovery began with a cave in the Denisova cave system in Siberia, a location already famous for yielding Neanderthal remains. Researchers weren't specifically looking for a new hominin. They were analyzing the layers of sediment within the cave, trying to understand how Neanderthals had lived and died there over tens of thousands of years. What they found in 2010 was astonishing: a jawbone, a toe bone, and a finger bone, all belonging to a creature unlike anything previously identified. The DNA extracted from this bone was incredibly degraded, but it told a clear and powerful tale. It didn't match the DNA of Neanderthals. It wasn't closely related to Homo sapiens. This suggested that another hominin species had been inhabiting the same region as Neanderthals, a species that was evolving independently. Further analysis of the cave sediments, particularly a skullcap found in 2013, confirmed the initial discovery, revealing a more complete picture of the Denisovan lineage. The name Denisovan comes from Denisova Cave, the site of their primary remains, but also from Denisova, a Russian scientist who was instrumental in the initial findings. The genetic makeup of the Denisovans is fascinating, and crucially, it reveals just how deeply intertwined human evolution truly is. Scientists have identified that modern humans, Homo sapiens, carry a small but significant genetic legacy from this lost group. Remarkably, some Melanesian populations, people living in the islands of Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, and Fiji, have the highest percentage of Denisovan DNA, sometimes as much as 4–6% of their genomes. This suggests a close interaction between Denisovans and these island populations tens of thousands of years ago. It's a direct inheritance, a tiny but tangible connection to this ancient people. The exact relationships between the Denisovans and other hominins remain somewhat murky, a puzzle that continues to intrigue scientists. They were likely related to the Neanderthals, possibly sharing a common ancestor, but they diverged along a separate evolutionary path. The Denisovan genome shows distinct genetic differences from both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, particularly in genes involved in immune response and adaptation to cold climates. This suggests that they were well adapted to the harsh conditions of the Siberian highlands. One intriguing area of research centers on a Denisovan gene, known as HVJIB, which is found in high frequency among Melanesians. This gene plays a critical role in regulating the body's response to inflammation. In Melanesian populations, it's associated with a reduced risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis, an autoimmune disease characterized by chronic inflammation. The presence of this gene in these populations is a compelling example of how genetic adaptations can arise in response to environmental pressures. In this case, the potential exposure to pathogens or environmental irritants. It's a striking instance of genetic inheritance shaping physical characteristics and health outcomes. The discovery of the Denisovan genome also forces us to reconsider the established narratives of human migration and dispersal. It's becoming increasingly clear that early Homo species were far more mobile and interconnected than previously thought. These groups weren't neatly separated into distinct populations, but rather interacted, mixed, and exchanged genes across vast distances. The fact that Homo sapiens inherited a substantial chunk of Denisovan DNA indicates that there were periods of contact and exchange between the two groups. Furthermore, the Denisovan genome provides valuable insights into the evolution of immunity. The Denisovans possessed unique genetic variants in genes related to the immune system, suggesting that they faced different selective pressures than Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. This highlights the importance of immune diversity in the face of evolving pathogens. Studying these genetic differences can help us understand how the human immune system evolved and how it responds to diseases today. The limited fossil record of the Denisovans, just a handful of bones, makes it difficult to reconstruct their physical appearance with certainty. However, genetic analysis suggests they were likely shorter and stockier than Homo sapiens, potentially reflecting adaptations to colder climates. They were clearly skilled hunters, as evidenced by the tools and hunting implements found at Denisova Cave. The archaeological record offers tantalizing glimpses of their lives, but the DNA, particularly, is the key to unlocking their secrets. The story of the Denisovans is a testament to the ongoing process of discovery in paleoanthropology. Each new fragment of bone, each new DNA sequence, pushes the boundaries of our knowledge and forces us to revise our understanding of human evolution. They represent a lost chapter in our story, a chapter that reminds us that the human lineage is far more complex and diverse than we initially imagined. The mystery of the Denisovans remains partially unsolved, a challenge for future research and a reminder that there's always more to learn about our origins. The story of Homo isn't simply about growing bigger brains or learning to use tools. It's about a transformation so profound, so fundamentally linked to our very identity, that it's often the most difficult to trace fully: the evolution of language. Before the ability to share complex ideas, coordinate hunts, and transmit knowledge across generations, Homo were, in a very real sense, isolated individuals. The journey towards spoken word was a gradual, intricate dance between changes in our physical bodies and shifts in the way our minds were organized. The starting point lies in examining the vocal anatomy of our ancestors. The vocal tracts of early hominins like Homo erectus were considerably different from ours. Their larynx, the vocal organ, was positioned lower in the throat. This lower position meant that their vocal range was restricted, primarily limited to guttural sounds, grunts, and perhaps some simple whistles. The size and shape of the pharynx, the space behind the nose and mouth, also contributed to this restricted range. These adaptations were shaped by natural selection. A lower larynx offered protection to the developing infant's airways, a vital benefit for survival. However, this anatomical setup wasn't conducive to the production of the diverse sounds that characterize human language. As Homo populations migrated and adapted to diverse environments, from the woodlands of Africa to the colder climates of Eurasia, selective pressures began to favor individuals with slightly modified vocal tracts. Over countless generations, the larynx gradually crept upwards, increasing the available space for vocal cord movement. This subtle shift, a change almost imperceptible in any single individual, compounded over time, broadening the potential for sound production. Simultaneously, the palatine bone, which forms the back of the mouth, began to take on a more defined shape, contributing to a greater control over airflow. The development of the hyoid bone, a U-shaped bone in the neck that supports the tongue, also played a critical role, providing increased flexibility and stability for tongue movements, absolutely essential for articulating complex sounds. But anatomical changes alone weren't enough. The emergence of language demanded a parallel revolution within the brain. The areas responsible for speech and language, primarily Broca's area and Wernicke's area, weren't fully developed in early hominins. These regions, located in the frontal and temporal lobes respectively, are now considered crucial for language production and comprehension. Evidence suggests that these areas began to show signs of specialization during the Middle Pleistocene, roughly 780,000 to 180,000 years ago. Fossil endocasts, which are impressions of the internal shape of the skull, reveal an expansion in the size of these areas in Homo heidelbergensis, and particularly in Homo neanderthalensis. Interestingly, Neanderthal brains weren't necessarily larger than those of Homo sapiens. However, they were organized differently. Neanderthal brains tended to be more globular, whereas Homo sapiens brains have a more elongated shape. This difference in brain structure is hypothesized to reflect differences in cognitive abilities and, crucially, in the processing of language. It's believed that Homo sapiens developed a greater capacity for hierarchical, recursive thinking, the ability to think about thoughts themselves, which is a cornerstone of complex linguistic abilities. Alongside brain development, several cognitive prerequisites were likely necessary for the emergence of language. One key factor is thought to be the development of sophisticated memory systems. Language relies heavily on the ability to recall and manipulate sequences of sounds and symbols. The increasing reliance on tools, particularly the creation of increasingly complex tools, suggests a growing capacity for mental planning and remembering. Furthermore, the ability to understand and respond to the intentions of others, a form of proto-theory of mind, would have been essential for the development of communication. Mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action, are now considered a significant factor. These neurons may have played a role in allowing early hominins to understand the actions and intentions of others, facilitating the development of communicative signals. The increasing complexity of social groups within Homo populations likely drove the need for more efficient and nuanced forms of communication, further stimulating brain development and the evolution of language. It's important to remember that the emergence of language wasn't a single event, but rather a protracted process, an ongoing interplay of biological and cognitive evolution. The fossil record provides tantalizing glimpses of this journey, but many details remain shrouded in mystery. We can only piece together a story based on the available evidence, the shape of the skull, the size of the brain, and the analysis of ancient DNA. The earliest forms of language likely involved gestures and vocalizations, gradually becoming more sophisticated over time, eventually culminating in the complex, nuanced, and infinitely expressive language that defines Homo sapiens today. It's a remarkable testament to the power of adaptation and the incredible journey of our species. The Earth, as it always has, was changing. Not dramatically, not with a sudden burst of destruction, but with a persistent, slow sculpting hand. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the Ice Age's periods of significant cooling had waxed and waned, creating a landscape of fluctuating environments that profoundly shaped the course of Homo evolution. These weren't just colder times. They were times of dramatic shifts in moisture patterns, the expansion and contraction of grasslands, and the formation and disappearance of vast lakes. Our ancestors, the Homo genus, were incredibly adaptable creatures, but their ability to thrive wasn't simply about possessing intelligence or tool use. It was inextricably linked to their response to these climatic pressures. The early Homo species, such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus, found themselves largely in warmer, savanna-dominated environments. They were successful hunters, taking advantage of the abundant game that flourished in these areas. However, as the first glacial advances began, the familiar landscape began to transform. The grasslands retreated, pushed back by the expanding ice sheets. Forests, once rare, started to spread, and the open plains became fragmented. This shrinking of habitable areas immediately created selective pressures. Individuals with traits better suited to the changing conditions, those with greater endurance, a thicker coat of fur, even if only faintly represented genetically, and an enhanced ability to exploit new food sources, were naturally more likely to survive and reproduce. Homo erectus, already a significantly more mobile species than its predecessors, began to exhibit this adaptive response most clearly. Their wider geographic range, spanning from Africa into Asia, wasn't simply a matter of exploration. It was a direct consequence of their ability to track the movements of resources and, crucially, to find environments that aligned with their changing physiological needs. The expansion into Eurasia occurred as the climate cooled, and they adapted to cooler, more seasonal environments. Their larger stature, a physical adaptation to retain more heat, and their increased reliance on a broader range of foods reflected this shift. The formation of the East African Rift Valley provided a particularly important crucible for adaptation. As the African plate split apart, it created a complex network of lakes and grasslands, and the associated environmental variations acted as natural barriers and corridors, fostering genetic divergence and specialization within Homo erectus populations. Different groups began to evolve distinct strategies for survival, some focused on aquatic resources, others on terrestrial prey, and still others on exploiting the new, denser forests. The fluctuating climate wasn't just forcing Homo to adapt, it was driving them to actively disperse. As traditional hunting grounds disappeared beneath ice, groups had no choice but to move outwards, seeking out areas where they could still secure food. This dispersal was not a planned migration in the modern sense, but rather a series of opportunistic movements driven by immediate environmental pressures. The journey to Eurasia, for example, was likely punctuated by periods of retreat and advance, following the edges of the warmer zones. The emergence of Homo heidelbergensis represents a pivotal moment in this climatic-driven dispersal. This species, appearing in Africa and Europe, possessed a greater cognitive capacity and technical skill than its predecessors. Crucially, they were demonstrably better equipped to exploit the increasingly diverse environments created by the shifting climate. They utilized sophisticated hunting techniques, created more complex tools, and constructed shelters that provided protection from the elements. All adaptations directly influenced by the need to cope with greater variability in temperature and rainfall. The archaeological record reveals that Homo heidelbergensis populations were experimenting with a wider range of food sources, including shellfish and marine mammals, as the sea levels rose and coastal habitats expanded. This dietary diversification was not solely driven by opportunity. It was a response to the changing availability of terrestrial prey and the need to maximize their caloric intake during periods of scarcity. Their presence in Europe coincided with the peak of the Middle Pleistocene glacial period, demonstrating their ability to withstand and even thrive in conditions that would have been challenging for many other species. As the last glacial advances intensified, the pressures on Homo became even greater. The fragmentation of the environment led to increased competition for resources, and survival became a constant struggle. It's believed that this intense selective pressure ultimately facilitated the evolution of Homo neanderthalensis in Europe. Neanderthals possessed a robust build, an efficient metabolism for conserving heat, and a remarkable capacity for adapting to cold, dry conditions. Their survival in the harsh landscapes of glacial Europe speaks volumes about their resilience, a resilience fundamentally shaped by the climatic challenges they faced. The Neanderthal adaptation to cold wasn't just physical. They developed sophisticated hunting strategies, learned to build and maintain shelters, and utilized fire, a crucial tool for warmth and protection, with a skill that surpassed that of Homo sapiens in some respects. Their ability to exploit the resources available in a fragmented and unpredictable environment highlights the powerful role climate change played in shaping their evolution. Ultimately, while Homo sapiens eventually dominated, it was the accumulated adaptations forged by Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, and Homo neanderthalensis, adaptations rooted in the challenges presented by fluctuating climates, that laid the groundwork for our own species' success. The capacity to respond, to adapt, and to move in response to environmental change is a core element of our evolutionary story, a story inextricably linked to the dance between humanity and the ever-changing face of the planet. The shifting climate didn't just present obstacles. It was the driving force behind the branching paths of Homo evolution, a constant reminder that survival depends on the ability to learn, to adjust, and to move with the world around us. The story of Neanderthals isn't just about their robust bones and impressive brains. It's deeply intertwined with how they found and prepared their food. Understanding their diet provides a crucial key to unlocking the puzzle of their success, and ultimately, their disappearance. For decades, researchers have been painstakingly reconstructing Neanderthal eating habits using the archaeological record, a collection of bones, teeth, tools, and even traces of plant matter found at their campsites and burial sites. It's a remarkably detailed investigation, revealing a surprisingly sophisticated approach to foraging, one that wasn't simply brute strength and opportunistic scavenging. The initial picture, painted primarily by examining tooth microwear, tiny scratches and polished patterns on the surfaces of teeth, revealed a diet far more varied than previously assumed. Initially, it appeared Neanderthals were predominantly meat-eaters, specializing in larger animals like horses, bison, and reindeer. However, the resolution of that initial picture has become increasingly nuanced. The microwear patterns on molars, in particular, show distinct differences depending on the animal consumed. Robust patterns associated with horse teeth are different from those found on bison teeth, demonstrating a targeted hunting strategy. This suggests Neanderthals weren't just stumbling across carcasses, they were actively pursuing specific prey. Furthermore, the analysis of bone isotopes, the ratios of different forms of hydrogen and carbon within bone, has provided a broader picture of their dietary intake. These isotopes reflect the types of food consumed and the environments in which they were eaten. Studies of Neanderthal bones from sites like Shanidar Cave in Iraq and El Cedron Cave in Spain indicate a consistent intake of protein from meat, but also a significant contribution from carbohydrates, primarily derived from plants. The proportions of carbon isotopes suggest a regular consumption of starchy roots, tubers, and possibly grains, a revelation that challenges the traditional image of Neanderthals solely as carnivorous hunters. The recovery of plant remains from Neanderthal sites offers even stronger evidence. Fossilized pollen grains, seeds, and even preserved fruits and berries have been unearthed alongside Neanderthal tools and bones. These discoveries paint a picture of a diet that incorporated a wide range of vegetation, reflecting the seasonal availability of resources. The analysis of dental calculus, the hardened deposits of saliva and food particles that accumulate on teeth, has identified traces of nuts, seeds, and fruits, providing direct evidence of these dietary components. Interestingly, the presence of dental remains containing starch grains, a technique called starch grain analysis, suggests they were regularly eating foods like hazelnuts and wild berries. The tools themselves offer compelling clues. Neanderthal hand axes, the iconic symbols of their technology, weren't just for butchering large animals. They were frequently used for processing smaller game, breaking bones to extract marrow, and preparing plant foods. The discovery of specialized tools, such as anvil stones, smooth, flat rocks used for pounding, and bone tools for scraping and grinding, demonstrates a remarkable understanding of food preparation techniques. The ability to soften tough plant tissues through careful processing would have been essential for accessing nutrients from a wider range of resources. The location of Neanderthal campsites also plays a vital role in our understanding of their foraging strategies. Many Neanderthal sites are located near water sources, indicating a reliance on aquatic resources. The recovery of fish bones and evidence of shellfish consumption suggests they were skilled hunters of aquatic animals. Some sites, like La Chapelle-Bertrand in France, have yielded evidence of elaborate butchery techniques, with multiple tools and carefully planned butchering sequences, indicating a deep understanding of animal anatomy and efficient processing methods. It's important to note that Neanderthal diet wasn't static. Like modern humans, their food choices likely varied depending on the season, geographic location, and the availability of resources. Archaeological evidence suggests they were adept at adapting their foraging strategies to the changing environment. During colder periods, when large herbivores were abundant, they focused on hunting larger animals. During warmer periods, when smaller animals and plant resources were more plentiful, they shifted their diet towards a greater reliance on plant foods. Moreover, the analysis of stable isotopes isn't solely about the type of food they consumed, but also the distance they traveled to obtain it. Certain isotopic signatures indicate Neanderthals were capable of traveling significant distances to access food resources, suggesting a wide-ranging foraging range. This ability to exploit a diverse range of environments was a key factor in their survival, particularly during times of environmental stress. Ultimately, the archaeological record reveals a Neanderthal diet that was far more complex and sophisticated than previously imagined. It wasn't simply about brute strength and opportunistic scavenging, but about a deep understanding of their environment, a remarkable technological skill, and an ability to adapt their foraging strategies to the changing seasons. Studying their diet and how they processed food helps us appreciate the resourcefulness and intelligence of these often misunderstood human ancestors, adding another fascinating layer to the story of human evolution. The story of Homo neanderthalensis isn't just about a slightly stockier cousin to modern humans. It's a story about a complex, surprisingly sophisticated social life, one we're still actively piecing together from the fragments of their existence. Examining Neanderthal skeletons, the tools they crafted, and the layout of their cave homes offers a fascinating glimpse into how they organized themselves and interacted with each other. Initially, the visual impression of Neanderthal remains. The robust bone structure, the slightly sloping foreheads, led scientists to believe they were solitary, perhaps even primitive. However, The accumulating evidence from numerous sites across Europe and Asia has drastically shifted that understanding. The analysis of skeletal remains, in particular, has revealed compelling clues. While individual variations certainly existed, there's a consistent pattern of trauma evident in Neanderthal bones. High rates of healed fractures, often involving the limbs and skulls, suggest a remarkably high level of interpersonal contact. These weren't isolated injuries. Many were consistent with blunt force trauma, suggesting conflict, whether aggressive or simply accidental, occurred frequently within Neanderthal groups. Some fractures, notably those in the orbits of the eye sockets, indicated repeated blows with significant force, implying a degree of deliberate hostility. However, the prevalence of healed fractures also indicates a robust social system, capable of providing care and support for individuals who had sustained injuries. It's a delicate balance, evidence of both conflict and caring. Beyond individual wounds, the size and shape of the bones themselves offer insights. Neanderthal limb bones, especially the femur and tibia, show signs of wear patterns consistent with cooperative activities like carrying heavy loads. Some researchers have proposed that Neanderthals routinely transported large animal carcasses, perhaps up to 100 kilograms, over considerable distances, suggesting a sophisticated system of collaborative hunting and resource distribution. The consistent muscle attachments visible on the bones reinforce this idea. Neanderthal legs were powerfully built, clearly designed for strenuous activity. Furthermore, the shape of the pelvis suggests a predominantly bipedal gait, optimized for endurance walking and running, a strategy vital for their nomadic lifestyle. The analysis of Neanderthal tools provides another crucial dimension to our understanding of their social structures. While the earliest tools were simple flakes and choppers, as time progressed, Neanderthals developed increasingly complex technologies, including Mousterian tools. The production of these tools required a certain level of knowledge transmission and skill sharing. The creation of prepared core tools, for example, involved carefully fracturing stone, a process that likely wasn't learned overnight. The distribution of toolkits across different Neanderthal sites demonstrates a network of exchange. Certain tool types were found consistently in areas far removed from their points of origin, implying a trade system. The presence of carefully crafted burins, elongated tools used for working with wood, alongside the hunting tools, indicates a level of specialization within the group, reflecting a division of labor based on skill and experience. The layout of Neanderthal cave sites further strengthens the picture of a complex social life. Unlike some earlier depictions of Neanderthals as simply dwelling in caves, evidence suggests they actively modified their living spaces. Many Neanderthal sites, such as La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France and Maltreviso in Spain, contain multiple dwellings within a single cave, often arranged around a central hearth. These multi-room structures indicate a level of social organization, perhaps family units or extended kinship groups, living in close proximity. The presence of carefully constructed sleeping platforms, often located away from the hearth, suggests a desire for privacy and comfort. Moreover, some Neanderthal caves contained what appear to be communal areas, spaces where people likely gathered to socialize, craft tools, or process food. Perhaps the most intriguing discovery has been the evidence of children's presence within Neanderthal settlements. Fossilized children's bones have been found alongside adult remains, suggesting that children were actively involved in Neanderthal life. This challenges the earlier notion of Neanderthals as a purely adult-oriented species. The discovery of juvenile tools, indicating early learning and imitation, further supports the idea that children played a crucial role in transmitting knowledge and skills to the next generation. It is increasingly believed that Neanderthal communities were, in essence, extended families, prioritizing the safety and education of their young. The sheer quantity of Neanderthal artifacts found at sites like Bruniquel Cave in France, where multiple individuals appear to have deliberately widened a passage, provides yet another layer of insight. This suggests a concerted, coordinated effort, likely driven by ritual or symbolic reasons. While the exact purpose remains debated, it is undeniable that Neanderthals were capable of complex planning and cooperation. The consistent evidence of collective activities, coupled with the skeletal and tool data, paints a picture of a social group capable of empathy, care, and sophisticated cooperative strategies. It's a far cry from the solitary hunter-gatherer of early depictions. The story of Neanderthal social life is still unfolding, but the evidence now overwhelmingly suggests a complex, thriving society, one that deserves a second look, a little more compassion, and a great deal more understanding. The world was changing, subtly at first, then with a growing, insistent force. Around 45,000 years ago, a transformation was taking root in the minds and hands of Homo sapiens, a shift so profound it's often called the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. Before this time, Homo populations, largely Homo heidelbergensis and early Homo erectus, relied on a relatively simple existence, primarily scavenging meat and using basic stone tools. But something was stirring, a surge of creativity and ingenuity that would reshape their world and ultimately, their destiny. It wasn't a single, sudden event, but rather a gradual accumulation of new techniques and ideas, spreading across Europe and eventually Asia. One of the first dramatic expressions of this revolution appeared in the form of art. Cave paintings, previously rare, suddenly blossomed across vast distances. The Lascaux caves in France, the Chauvet caves in southern France, and countless others revealed breathtaking scenes of animals, horses, bison, reindeer, woolly mammoths, rendered with astonishing skill and detail. These weren't just crude drawings. They were complex depictions, often showing animals in motion, with an understanding of anatomy and perspective that suggests careful observation and a desire to capture not just the appearance, but the essence of the animal. Alongside the paintings, we found portable art, carved figurines made of ivory, bone, and stone. The Venet figurines, for example, are small, skillfully shaped animal representations, likely intended for ritual or personal use. The purpose of these objects remains a topic of debate, but they clearly demonstrate a heightened awareness of the natural world and an ability to imbue it with symbolic meaning. The technological advancements of the Upper Paleolithic were equally remarkable. While earlier Homo relied on flakes and choppers, tools created by striking one stone against another, Upper Paleolithic toolmakers developed a suite of sophisticated techniques. They mastered the creation of blades, long, thin flakes produced by carefully controlled percussion, which could be further refined into arrowheads and other specialized tools. The discovery of microliths, tiny, carefully crafted stone tools, often less than 2 centimeters long, represents a crucial innovation. These small tools, frequently inserted into wooden shafts to create composite tools like spears and arrows, allowed for greater flexibility and efficiency in hunting and crafting. The standardization of these microliths, often produced in large quantities and distributed across considerable distances, points to a complex system of trade and communication, suggesting that groups of Homo sapiens were beginning to connect and share knowledge. This period also witnessed a revolution in hunting strategies. The simple act of chasing an animal with a stone spear was replaced by more complex, coordinated approaches. Evidence suggests the development of traps, pit traps, snares, and deadfalls, designed to capture animals without direct confrontation. The discovery of spear throwers, also known as atlatls, offers a particularly compelling picture. These devices, essentially extensions of the arm, dramatically increase the range and power of spears, allowing hunters to bring down large game animals at greater distances. The atlatl wasn't just a longer spear. It acted as a lever, amplifying the force of the thrower's arm and enabled the creation of heavier, more effective projectile points. Archaeological findings show that skilled hunters were taking down increasingly large prey, reindeer, bison, and even woolly mammoths, demonstrating a growing mastery of both technology and strategy. Furthermore, the Upper Paleolithic saw an increase in the use of personal ornamentation. Beads made from shells, animal teeth, and bone were strung together to create necklaces and bracelets, suggesting a growing concern with appearance and social status. The deliberate shaping and polishing of these objects indicates a level of artistry and attention to detail previously unseen. This isn't just about decoration. It's a sign of developing social structures, perhaps reflecting differences in rank or skill, and a growing awareness of self-expression. The spread of these innovations wasn't uniform. Different groups developed their own unique techniques and styles, reflecting the diverse environments they inhabited. But the underlying trend was clear. Homo sapiens were rapidly evolving, adapting, and innovating at an unprecedented rate. The Upper Paleolithic revolution wasn't just about tools and art. It was about the birth of a new way of thinking, a way of seeing the world and our place within it. It was the beginning of humanity's journey toward complexity and, ultimately, our present form. The legacy of this era continues to resonate today, shaping our understanding of human history and our own potential for ingenuity and adaptation. The story of human evolution has a central, incredibly compelling idea that we didn't simply pop into existence in our current form. Instead, our ancestors embarked on a remarkable journey, a long-distance migration that began in Africa and ultimately led to the diversity of human populations we see around the world today. This core concept is known as the Out of Africa model, and it's built upon a powerful combination of genetic and fossil evidence, constantly refined and debated by scientists. Initially, the idea arose from some surprising observations made in the 1980s. Researchers were studying human genetic variation, the differences in DNA sequences that make us all unique. They discovered something quite remarkable. Essentially, all modern humans carry a small percentage of DNA that is different from that found in ancient populations living outside of Africa. This suggested that everyone alive today descends from a relatively recent common ancestor who lived in Africa. It was as if a small, successful group had spread across the globe, replacing the existing populations. The crucial element of this narrative is the mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA story. Mitochondria are tiny structures within our cells, like little power plants, and they have their own small chromosome. Unlike the DNA in the nucleus of our cells, mtDNA is passed down almost exclusively from mothers to their children. Consequently, it provides a direct line to trace our maternal ancestry. Analyzing the variations in mtDNA sequences across different populations revealed a clear pattern. The greatest diversity of mtDNA sequences was found in Africa, and the sequences became progressively less diverse as you moved further away. This wasn't a coincidence. It strongly supported the notion of a single origin. But genetic evidence alone isn't enough to tell the whole story. The Out of Africa model requires support from the fossil record. Paleolithic archaeologists have unearthed countless hominin fossils, the remains of our extinct relatives, across the globe. The key discovery that powerfully bolstered the Out of Africa hypothesis came from the Denisovans. In 2010, a team of scientists working in a Siberian cave, Denisova Cave, announced the discovery of a completely new hominin group, the Denisovans. The Denisovans were known primarily from a handful of fragmentary fossil remains, a finger bone, a few teeth, and a small skull capsule. Yet, even these limited remains contained genetic material that was strikingly different from Neanderthal DNA. Genetic analysis showed that Denisovans contributed a small percentage of DNA to modern human populations, particularly in Oceania, Australia, New Zealand, and surrounding islands and East Asia. This wasn't a separate, fully developed hominin species that successfully spread and diversified. Instead, it suggested that Denisovans were an ancient group that interbred with early modern humans as they migrated out of Africa. Furthermore, the distribution of fossils provides a crucial geographical context. The earliest known fossils of Homo sapiens, our own species, are found in Africa, dating back over 300,000 years ago. As Homo sapiens began to migrate out of Africa, they encountered Neanderthals in Europe and Asia. Fossil evidence reveals that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals coexisted for thousands of years. And importantly, evidence of interbreeding between the two groups has been found in the DNA of modern humans with non-African ancestry. Specifically, individuals of European and Asian descent carry between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA, a tangible legacy of this ancient interaction. However, the out-of-Africa model isn't without its complexities and ongoing debates. Some researchers have proposed alternative scenarios, such as multi-regional evolution, which suggests that modern humans evolved gradually from a mixture of Neanderthal and Homo erectus populations in Eurasia. While this model was once considered a serious contender, the overwhelming genetic evidence continues to support a single origin in Africa and a subsequent dispersal of Homo sapiens across the globe, punctuated by periods of interbreeding with other hominin groups. The debate isn't about whether humans originated in Africa. It's about the details of that journey and the extent of the interactions that occurred along the way. Sophisticated computer modeling and genetic simulations are now used to trace the paths of human migration, factoring in geographical barriers, population sizes, and rates of interbreeding. These models help to refine our understanding of when and how Homo sapiens spread across the world, painting a picture of a truly global odyssey. The story of human evolution, built upon these genetic and fossil clues, is a story of movement, adaptation, and ultimately, our shared ancestry with a remarkable diversity of hominin species. The ochre dust of the Kalahari clung to everything in Malongoa, a small valley nestled within the northern Cape province of South Africa. For years, this seemingly unremarkable place held a secret, one slowly being revealed through meticulous work by an international team of archaeologists. The Malongoa Cave Project wasn't about a single, dramatic discovery. It was a patient, painstaking investigation of a cave system, revealing a remarkably layered story of human occupation spanning almost 100,000 years. Unlike some cave sites that yield a snapshot in time, Malongoa offered a continuous record, a complex tapestry woven by generations of Homo sapiens who called it home. The initial exploration began in 2008, led by Dr. Charlotte Becker of the University of Oxford, and quickly revealed the cave system's surprising depth. The cave mouth opened into a series of chambers and passages, each exhibiting distinct geological strata, layers of rock deposited over immense periods. These layers, like pages in a very old book, were crucial because they provided a chronological framework for understanding the human activity within the cave. What makes Malongoa unique is the incredible preservation found within these layers, largely due to a specific environmental condition: a persistent, almost constant stream of groundwater. This water, rich in calcium carbonate, acted as a natural preservative, protecting bones and artifacts from decay far better than you'd find in most dry cave environments. The first discoveries were modest, a few stone tools, predominantly flakes and cores, typical of early Homo sapiens. However, as excavation progressed, the site's true significance began to emerge. Stratigraphic control was paramount. Every centimeter removed was meticulously documented, analyzed, and dated. This rigorous approach allowed the team to establish a precise sequence of occupation events. The lower layers, dating back approximately 97,000 years, contain the oldest Homo sapiens remains found in southern Africa, offering a critical point of comparison with the age of other early human sites across the continent. These initial inhabitants were primarily hunter-gatherers, relying on a diet of animals like kudu, springbok, and oryx, as evidenced by animal bone fragments and the shape and wear patterns on the stone tools. As excavation reached deeper into the cave's recesses, the team uncovered evidence of a shift in the inhabitants' behavior and technology. The mid-strata, dating from around 75,000 to 55,000 years ago, revealed a greater reliance on smaller, more refined tools, projectile points for hunting, butchering tools, and carefully crafted implements for processing plant materials. Crucially, the site offered compelling evidence of social organization. The discovery of intentionally arranged hearths, multiple fire pits within the same layer, indicates a sophisticated understanding of fire's uses, not just for warmth and cooking, but also for ritual and social gathering. Moreover, the distribution of artifacts within each layer wasn't random. There were distinct concentrations of specific types of tools or animal bones in particular areas, suggesting that different groups of people were using the cave for different purposes at different times. Analysis of microwear patterns on the tools indicated a diverse range of activities: butchering large animals, processing plants for seeds and fibers, and possibly even crafting objects for personal adornment. The presence of ochre pigment, frequently used for body painting and decoration, was also abundant, signifying a deep connection between the people of Malongoa and the surrounding landscape. The deepest layers of the cave, dating back as far as 45,000 years ago, brought the most startling discoveries. Here, the team unearthed remarkably well-preserved skeletal remains of several individuals, including a juvenile boy and a pregnant woman. These remains were extraordinarily detailed, revealing information about their physical stature, health, and possibly even their genetic makeup. The discovery of a small, intricately carved shell pendant near the woman's remains provided further insight into the cultural practices of this earlier group. It's a small object, yet it speaks volumes about the capacity for symbolic thought and artistic expression within this community. What is particularly noteworthy about Malongoa is that it presents a relatively continuous occupation sequence. Unlike some cave sites which show evidence of abandonment and reoccupation, the cave seems to have served as a long-term settlement, providing a stable environment for human activity for tens of thousands of years. The ongoing research at Malongoa continues to refine our understanding of early Homo sapiens in southern Africa, providing a tangible link to our ancestors and demonstrating the incredible adaptability and resilience of the human spirit. It's a place where the echoes of the past still resonate, waiting to be heard through the careful work of scientists and the enduring power of the Kalahari's secrets. Deep within the remote hills of Indonesia, a story unfolds, a story of a remarkably small human, a human unlike any we'd previously encountered. This is the tale of Homo floresiensis, a creature known affectionately as the Hobbit, and a testament to the incredible power of evolution shaped by the unique pressures of island life. The discovery of Homo floresiensis in 2003 at the Liangbua cave on the island of Flores completely challenged our understanding of human evolution, forcing us to reconsider the pathways by which our ancestors diversified and adapted. Initial fossil finds, consisting of several individuals, including a complete skeleton of a particularly small adult female, immediately raised questions about their place in the human family tree. The size of these remains, the adult female standing a mere 1 meter tall, was astonishing, particularly when compared to the remains of other Homo species from the same period. The initial hypothesis suggested a pathological condition, perhaps a form of dwarfism caused by a genetic mutation. However, as more fossils were unearthed, a different picture began to emerge. The bones weren't simply unusually small, they were consistently small, reflecting a prolonged period of dwarfism throughout the species' lifespan. Subsequent studies of the teeth revealed a fascinating morphology. They were small and simple, resembling those of Australopithecines, yet possessed a degree of sophistication, suggesting an ability to process a varied diet. This presented a critical puzzle. How could a small-brained Homo species have the physical capabilities of a more complex ancestor? The key to understanding Homo floresiensis likely lies in the specific ecological context of Flores. The island is a volcanic landmass, largely dominated by dense forests and characterized by a relatively isolated environment. For millions of years, Flores was separated from the Indonesian mainland, allowing for a unique evolutionary trajectory to unfold. The island's resources, a steady supply of roots, tubers, insects, and small reptiles, presented a different set of challenges and opportunities than those faced by Homo sapiens or even other Homo species in Africa. The small size of Homo floresiensis wasn't a disease, it was an adaptation. Island dwarfism, a phenomenon frequently observed in other island-dwelling animals, is driven by a combination of factors. Reduced competition is a significant one. With fewer large herbivores and predators on Flores, there was less pressure for individuals to grow to enormous sizes. Furthermore, a smaller body size requires less food and energy, which is particularly advantageous in environments where resources can be scarce or unpredictable. This reduction in size is often accompanied by a reduction in brain size, a pattern observed in many island-dwelling species, as the energetic demands of a large brain are simply too high for survival. But the story doesn't end with simple adaptation to resource availability. Genetic studies have revealed a compelling link between Homo floresiensis and Homo erectus, a species that spread across Asia and Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago. The genetic evidence suggests that Homo floresiensis represents a distinct lineage of Homo erectus that had been isolated on Flores for an extraordinarily long period, possibly as long as 700,000 years. During this time, the population underwent a significant genetic bottleneck, leading to a loss of genetic diversity, and subsequently, the evolutionary changes we see reflected in their small stature. Their toolkit, though rudimentary compared to later Homo species, also demonstrates a degree of cognitive ability. The fossils recovered from Liang Bua include stone tools, hand axes, flakes, and scrapers, indicating a capacity for processing plant matter and perhaps even hunting small animals. The tools weren't elaborate, they were simple and efficient, perfectly suited to the island's environment. The careful analysis of stone tool, where patterns suggest that Homo floresiensis was skilled at exploiting the available resources, employing a subsistence-based lifestyle. The question of how Homo floresiensis interacted with other hominins, specifically Homo sapiens, who arrived on Flores around 50,000 years ago, is still being debated. Evidence suggests that Homo floresiensis and Homo sapiens coexisted for a period, with some younger fossils exhibiting a mix of features, suggesting interbreeding. The reasons for the eventual extinction of Homo floresiensis are complex, potentially involving competition with Homo sapiens, climate change, or a combination of factors. The story of Homo floresiensis is a powerful reminder that human evolution isn't a linear progression. It's a branching tree, filled with unexpected twists and turns, influenced by a myriad of environmental pressures and genetic mutations. The Hobbit may seem bizarre and diminutive, but its existence dramatically expanded our understanding of the diversity of the Homo genus and the remarkable adaptability of our ancestors. It continues to be studied, and the secrets held within the volcanic hills of Flores may yet reveal further surprises about the story of humankind. The journey out of Africa wasn't a sudden sprint, but a gradual shimmering ripple spreading across the vast oceans. While earlier Homo sapiens had ventured into Eurasia, the true expansion, the wave that would eventually wash over every continent, was intimately tied to the development of seafaring capabilities. It began around 60,000 years ago, a period marked by increasing coastal populations and, crucially, a burgeoning understanding of water's power. The first voyages weren't grand expeditions led by skilled captains, but rather smaller groups, likely families and clans, taking advantage of seasonal changes, currents, and the predictable movements of marine life. Evidence suggests these initial steps were primarily along the coasts of the Mediterranean Sea. Archaeological finds at sites like Cueva de los Leithis in Spain reveal the presence of Homo sapiens alongside sophisticated fishing tools, harpoons, nets, and traps, indicating a deep connection to the marine environment. These weren't just opportunistic hunters. They were becoming adept at utilizing the sea as a resource and perhaps a pathway. The development of seaworthy boats was a process of iterative refinement, driven by necessity and observation. Initially, they likely utilized rafts constructed from logs and reeds, remarkably stable in calm waters. As understanding increased, they began crafting dugout canoes, hollowed-out logs, offering greater speed and maneuverability. The introduction of the bow and stern added further control, allowing for directional changes and stability. The exact timeline of these innovations is difficult to pinpoint, but evidence from sites in Australia, dating back nearly 60,000 years, demonstrates the earliest known seafaring by Homo sapiens. These weren't simple rafts. They were carefully constructed vessels, suggesting a level of technical skill and a profound reliance on the ocean. These early navigators wouldn't have relied on detailed maps. Those would have taken millennia to develop. Instead, they mastered a system of celestial navigation, using the stars to determine direction, combined with their intimate knowledge of wave patterns, currents, and the behavior of marine animals. It's a testament to their observational abilities and their ability to translate the natural world into a usable tool. From Australia, the expansion continued, steadily pushing outwards towards Southeast Asia and eventually the shores of the Pacific Ocean. The peopling of the islands of Melanesia, present-day Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, and Fiji, occurred around 35,000 years ago. These islands presented unique challenges, diverse marine environments, unpredictable weather, and the need to adapt to new food sources. The arrival of Homo sapiens in these regions coincided with a significant decline in the megafauna that had previously dominated the islands, such as the giant flightless birds and large reptiles. This suggests a complex interaction between humans and their environment, potentially involving hunting pressure, but also highlighting the adaptability of Homo sapiens to utilize previously untapped resources. Genetic studies confirm a distinct ancestral lineage for populations across Southeast Asia, demonstrating the sustained presence and divergence of this early Homo sapiens group. The most remarkable expansion, however, lay ahead: the colonization of the Pacific. Starting around 15,000 years ago, Homo sapiens began to navigate the vast distances of the Pacific Ocean, reaching islands as far afield as the Marquesas, Hawaii, and Easter Island. This wasn't achieved through simple seafaring. It required an extraordinary level of skill, endurance, and a deep understanding of ocean currents and wind patterns. The distances were staggering, and the technology available, primarily outrigger canoes, was relatively simple. Yet, they accomplished this feat, demonstrating a level of maritime prowess unmatched by any other hominin species. The exact routes they took remain a subject of ongoing research and debate, involving sophisticated computer modeling and analysis of archaeological evidence. It's believed they utilized prevailing winds and currents, establishing trade routes that connected distant island communities. The arrival in the Americas represents another pivotal moment. While the precise timing and routes of the initial migrations are debated, genetic and archaeological evidence points to a coastal route along the west coast of North and South America, beginning approximately 15,000, 20,000 years ago. These early migrants rapidly spread throughout the continent, adapting to a wide range of environments, from the icy tundra of Alaska to the dense rainforests of the Amazon. The ability to exploit marine resources, fish, shellfish, and seals, was crucial to their survival and expansion. Furthermore, the development of sophisticated fishing techniques, including the construction of weirs and fish traps, indicates a profound understanding of marine ecosystems. The arrival in South America, particularly Chile and Peru, brought about the development of complex coastal cultures, evidenced by the intricate fishing tools and the adaptation to a variety of marine environments. The spread of Homo sapiens across the globe was a story of remarkable human ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability. It wasn't a single event, but a series of interconnected migrations, driven by the desire to explore, exploit new resources, and ultimately to shape the world around them. The ocean, once viewed as a formidable barrier, became their highway, their source of sustenance, and ultimately the foundation of their global dispersal. The legacy of these early mariners who dared to navigate the unknown continues to resonate today, reminding us of the profound impact that humans can have on the planet, starting with the simple act of a journey across the water. The story of Homo sapiens is a grand one, a journey across continents and millennia, but woven into this remarkable story is a crucial and somewhat sobering thread, a dramatic reduction in genetic diversity that occurred relatively recently in our ancestry. It wasn't a story of continuous, boundless proliferation, but rather a period of intense restriction that shaped who we are today. Before the wide-ranging migrations that followed, a population faced with immense pressure underwent a pivotal change, one that left a lasting mark on our genetic makeup. Around 70,000 years ago, a small group of Homo sapiens, we don't know exactly where they were, but the prevailing theory points to a region of southern Africa, experienced a catastrophic event. This wasn't a single, easily defined disaster like a volcanic eruption or a flood, though such events may have played a role. It was more of a relentless, prolonged series of hardships that dramatically curtailed the size of their population. Archaeological evidence suggests a combination of factors: recurring droughts, perhaps intensified by a shift in climate patterns, coupled with localized, repeated challenges in securing resources. The ability to adapt to these conditions, while undeniably a strength of Homo sapiens, also meant that the population numbers dwindled severely. Consider this: genetic diversity is like a vibrant tapestry, woven from countless threads of variation. Each individual carries a slightly different version of a gene, a tiny instruction manual that influences countless characteristics, from eye color to susceptibility to certain diseases. A large, healthy population provides a rich, diverse pool of these genetic variations. When that population shrinks, that tapestry begins to fray. The loss of individuals means the loss of those specific genetic threads. The number of individuals in this bottleneck population is estimated to have been remarkably low, likely no more than a few thousand. This incredibly small number is key to understanding the severity of the genetic loss. It's akin to photocopying a single page from a massive encyclopedia. You've essentially created a copy of that specific information, but you've utterly destroyed all the other information contained within the original. The consequences of this bottleneck were profound. Many genetic variants that had previously existed within the larger Homo sapiens population were simply lost. It wasn't that these variants disappeared entirely from the Earth. They remained present in other human populations that had evolved independently. However, the genetic toolbox available to the descendants of this small group was dramatically reduced. This reduction in diversity had implications for many aspects of human biology. For example, certain genetic predispositions to diseases, which might have been masked within the larger population, became more apparent. Conditions that were rare in the original population suddenly became more common as the genetic variants responsible for their expression were now more prevalent. Conversely, some genetic vulnerabilities that were previously uncommon now became more frequent. Furthermore, the reduced genetic diversity made the population more vulnerable to environmental challenges. A diverse population is better equipped to respond to new threats, whether it's a change in climate, a novel pathogen, or a new food source. A population with limited genetic variation lacks the inherent adaptability needed to cope with unexpected circumstances. Imagine a garden filled with only one type of flower. A single disease could wipe out the entire crop. Scientists study the patterns of genetic variation within modern Homo sapiens to reconstruct this bottleneck event. Analysis of mitochondrial DNA, passed down maternally, and Y chromosome DNA, passed down paternally, provides powerful insights into the population's origin and subsequent spread. These genetic markers show a striking lack of diversity in populations originating from southern Africa, further supporting the theory of a significant population contraction. The timing of this bottleneck is crucial. While the initial population decline occurred around 70,000 years ago, the effects of this genetic loss continued to ripple through the population for thousands of years. It wasn't until Homo sapiens began to expand outwards, encountering and interbreeding with other human populations, such as Neanderthals and Denisovans, that the genetic diversity began to rebuild. These encounters, though initially challenging, provided new genetic threads, slowly weaving a more complex and resilient tapestry. The story of the genetic bottleneck in Homo sapiens serves as a stark reminder that human evolution isn't always a straightforward march forward. It's punctuated by periods of constraint, hardship, and loss, events that profoundly shape our destiny. It's a testament to the power of adaptation, but also a humbling illustration of how fragile a population can be when its genetic resources are depleted. The legacy of this bottleneck continues to influence human health and susceptibility to disease today, a subtle but enduring consequence of a pivotal moment in our species' history. The story of Homo sapiens doesn't end with the migrations and the development of complex societies. It's a story still being written, a remarkable and frankly astonishing, ongoing experiment in biological adaptation. For millennia, our species' trajectory was largely dictated by the physical demands of a world sculpted by natural selection. Survival depended on factors like resistance to tropical diseases, the ability to process starchy foods, and crucially, the development of brains capable of complex problem-solving and social cooperation. But the world has changed dramatically in the last 200 years, and with it, the selective pressures acting upon Homo sapiens have shifted dramatically. We've become, in essence, a species navigating an entirely new kind of environment, one shaped by our own actions. The most immediate impact has been the rise of urban centers. Suddenly, vast populations were concentrated in environments riddled with pollutants, requiring an evolved sensitivity to toxins that simply wasn't necessary in our ancestral habitats. We've observed, through genetic studies, a fascinating response to this new challenge. The increased prevalence of genes associated with faster detoxification pathways, specifically, variants in genes involved in the breakdown of chemicals like pesticides and heavy metals, provides compelling evidence of ongoing adaptation. This isn't a sudden, dramatic shift like the evolution of thicker enamel in early hominins. It's a subtle, gradual process, driven by the constant exposure to environmental stressors. Furthermore, the very nature of food has transformed. The agricultural revolution, while initially a source of sustenance and population growth, has led to a reliance on processed foods, often high in sugar, fat, and salt. This has sparked a localized, though still relatively weak selection pressure related to our metabolism. We are seeing, alongside other populations, a shift towards individuals with a greater capacity to efficiently process these nutrient-dense, yet potentially damaging foods. This is particularly noticeable in regions where diets have undergone rapid changes, like the rise of obesity in developed nations. It's a clear demonstration that our genes aren't entirely fixed. They can, and do, respond to the availability of resources. Beyond diet, the rise of technology is presenting entirely new selective pressures. The increasing demands on cognitive function, sustained attention, rapid information processing, and the ability to multitask are impacting neurological development. Researchers are exploring the potential for differences in the size and connectivity of specific brain regions, such as the prefrontal cortex, between individuals who spend extended periods engaging in digital activities versus those who do not. It's a complex area, still largely unmapped, but the early indications are intriguing, suggesting a possible narrowing of neural pathways in individuals exposed to high levels of screen time. The spread of infectious diseases presents another critical evolutionary challenge. Modern travel and globalization have facilitated the rapid exchange of pathogens, placing immense selective pressure on our immune systems. Viruses, in particular, are incredibly adept at mutating, constantly evading our defenses. The response to diseases like influenza and HIV has revealed remarkable variation in immune response genes, genes that control the effectiveness of the adaptive immune system. Individuals with stronger, more versatile immune systems are, predictably, more likely to survive and reproduce, contributing to the gradual strengthening of these defense mechanisms across the population. It's a continuous arms race, with pathogens and our immune systems perpetually vying for dominance. Climate change represents perhaps the most profound and potentially devastating selective pressure Homo sapiens faces. As temperatures rise and weather patterns become more erratic, populations living in vulnerable regions, coastal areas, arid lands, will face increased challenges to their survival. The ability to tolerate heat, to adapt to changing water availability, and to cope with the stresses of extreme weather events will be paramount. Genetic studies of populations already experiencing the direct effects of climate change, for example, those living in the Sahel region of Africa, are revealing the emergence of genes associated with heat tolerance and drought resistance. It's important to remember that evolution isn't a conscious process. Homo sapiens aren't deliberately trying to adapt to these new environments. It's simply the result of differential survival and reproduction. Those individuals with traits that are best suited to the prevailing conditions are more likely to pass on their genes, leading to a gradual shift in the genetic makeup of the population. Looking further into the future, the potential for even more dramatic evolutionary changes is significant. With advancements in genetic engineering and personalized medicine, we have the capacity to actively shape our own evolution, a prospect that raises profound ethical and philosophical questions. Gene editing technologies like CRISPR could be used to correct genetic defects, enhance cognitive abilities, or even engineer resistance to future diseases. The implications are vast and, frankly, a little unsettling. However, even without direct intervention, the evolutionary trajectory of Homo sapiens remains uncertain. The speed of environmental change, the unpredictable nature of pathogens, and the complex interplay between genes and environment will continue to drive adaptation. It's a story unfolding in real time, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of our species. And as we navigate this ever-changing world, one thing is clear: the evolutionary story of Homo sapiens is far from over. It's a story we are all, in a very real sense, writing together. If you're still awake and enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Ultimate Sleep Doctor. Together, we can soothe more wandering minds, one peaceful night at a time. Our journey through the echoes of human evolution slowly fades now, like footprints in the sand. Let your thoughts drift, calm and unhurried into the quiet spaces of your mind.